Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So forgive me for the last few days, it has been hyper windy out here in Wyoming, so I haven't had much of an opportunity to come out here and geek out about the Land Cruiser too much. But today, I owe you guys a video talking about exactly how much I paid for my 2021 Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. Most of you guys have been following like the same group of folks who watch my videos. You guys know I just picked this up last weekend, and it had 77 miles on it. So essentially brand new. And if you look online, if you ever try to keep your finger on the pulse of Land Cruiser prices, if you're going to get one with less than 10,000 miles on it, you're going to be hard pressed to find one for less than 100 grand. I mean, you might be able to find one in mid 90s on occasion that will sneak up on you, but never have I found one with 77 miles for this particular price. I mean, the ones that have a few hundred miles out there, we're talking like 400, 500, 600 miles on them, they're wanting $125,000 or $130,000. So you got the people who just kind of held on to them and want a very high premium, a high dollar point for them, an outrageous dollar point. This one, when I spotted it online, they wanted 111,000, so 110.9 is what they were asking for it when I spotted it. And they had just posted it, so I figured it was at least worth a phone call to them to see how much they'd part with it for. And to my surprise, they came down a little bit. So I got them down. Ultimately, after everything's said and done, I paid $105,000 for my Land Cruiser here. $105,000. And I do want to use this as an opportunity to do a shout out to Toyota Del Rio, specifically the GM there. His name's Michael Palmer. He had an opportunity to tell me to pound sand. And what I mean by this is, and I'm going to show you here in a second, the day after I purchased it, the next morning I was filling up to hit the road again, leaving Texas. I noticed a slight amount of damage back here. So this, once upon a time, had maybe been bumped into. Obviously a small bump, nothing crazy, but you can tell kind of a shoddy repair job right there. So I wasn't too thrilled. I was filling up my tank, just kind of looking down, and you can tell by the different angles of light how it hits it, kind of gets bubbly right there. And it's not bubbly; it's just a kind of a botch touch-up job, if we're being honest. And you can kind of see this right here has a little bit of a scrape on it too. So when it was in the showroom floor, you guys remember the video, it was kind of tucked there in the corner. I don't think they did it maliciously one bit. They had just gotten it. So remember I told you it was just posted? He had just purchased it from Connecticut at auction. Michael did. So they just bought it. They just paid a premium for it too. And just a couple days prior is when it arrived. Then they had a detailer do a little wipe down on it. And honestly, when it's all cleaned up and shined up, it's really hard to tell, especially in that lighting. I couldn't have, not to mention I wasn't looking for that kind of damage on a 77 mile Land Cruiser, right? You're not showing up expecting it to be wonky any bit. But you can imagine, being a car guy and having spent that much money for it, I had a pit in my stomach that next morning. But I texted Ruben, my sales rep. He did a great job. He relayed it to the GM, Michael, and thankfully Michael was willing to do a little bit about it. He ended up reimbursing $2,000 for that. Which I appreciate. You know, he could have technically told me to pound sand, you know, but I'm appreciative that he didn't. So $105,000 is what we paid. You guys tell me if that is totally absurd. A part of me feels like it is, just because I have paid much less for these before. You guys know that. But at the same time, in the same vein, you know, you got to pay to play, and you got to pay market value for them if you're going to get them. So as a reminder, I'll give you a quick snapshot. I think I paid right around 79 or 80. I talked them down $9,000 to $10,000 off of MSRP for my very first 2020 Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. I bought it before everyone went crazy for them. If you guys remember, I bought it on my birthday a few years back, a couple of years back, actually a few years back now, 2.5. Anyway, so I paid about $80,000 for the same vehicle. Isn't that kind of crazy? And here I'm spending $105 for it, and it had a little bit of a bump on the back of it. So times have changed, unfortunately. My second one, let me think back. Yeah, my second one I paid $83,000 for. That's the one I think I bought in Tennessee or Kentucky. I think it was Tennessee. Gosh, I forget. Yeah, that's pathetic. Anyways, I paid 83. I remember talking down a little bit. That was for my magnetic grade metallic one. And then number 3 was another magnetic grade metallic. None of them were third row. This is my only third row that I've ever gotten. And my third one, I paid a $5,000 markup for it, and it had 1,000 miles on it. So it was a demo, I think, for the dealership, and that was out in Idaho, that one that I purchased. So with a $5,000 mark, so I think it was right around $95,000 is what I purchased that one for, or a little bit less, if I recall. So this is the most I've spent for one by a long shot. Granted, it is the only one that has a third row, so I kind of loosely justify it with that. Not to mention, it's just dang near impossible to find it with 77 miles. So very grateful to have found it, very happy to have found it. But you guys also know when I sold each of my Land Cruisers before, I guess I'm only going to mention the last one because I think that's the only relevant one per se. Actually, I'll go through the list of them. So the first one, I traded it into a dealership in Florida for $83,000 some change, if I recall. It was $83,000 at least, I think I got. And I ended up trading in for a white 4Runner TRD Pro at the time. So $83,000 some change. The second one, I had done quite a bit to it. I think I had done the full clear bra on that one. Put the, actually I don't know if that was the second or third one, but I put the running boards on it, not the running boards, but the rock sliders on it. And I sold that one for $100,000 even. A gentleman came up from Texas, awesome dude. He ended up buying that one for $100,000 at the time. And at this time, this is when it started spiking up, right? This is when the price tag started really climbing, and it climbed higher than that for a minute. So after I sold that one, pardon me, kind of kicked myself because people were selling those with similar miles to what it had at the time for $110,000, $120,000 pretty easy at that time, if you guys recall. If you followed the market on these, you know what I'm talking about. That era, that point about 8 to 10 months ago where they really spiked up. So that was for $100,000. And then my third one, that's when I traded in for the Voodoo Blue Tundra TRD Pro, if you guys remember. And that one, they gave me, I think it was $99,700. It was under $100,000 for sure. So it was right around $100,000 what they did for trade-in. But granted, I paid a crap ton for that Voodoo Blue Tundra TRD Pro. I spent $65,000 for that thing. So I overpaid for that tremendously. But it is kind of a loose wash to some degree because, getting just under $100,000 for the Land Cruiser was a great value. So keep that in mind. I think it had 8,000 or 9,000 miles on it, that last one that I had, which I traded in for $100,000. I was getting better trade-in offers at that time too, but obviously it wasn't for that particular Voodoo Blue Tundra TRD Pro. So I ended up kind of biting the bullet, quote unquote, biting the bullet a little bit, if that makes sense. Whereas here we are with this one. So for about $6,000 more, not quite, I got a brand new one with 77 miles. So there's a whole site picture, probably TMI, but I just kind of want to walk you through my sequence of Land Cruiser ownership, all of them Heritage Editions, of course, but just kind of give you an idea of how the values have changed. Although I'm paying higher, I also got more for them, if that makes sense. So let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if $105,000 is too much for a little Toyota that technically should have costed $89,000 and some change brand new. And I remember meowing and gawking about that back when they were charging MSRP. I remember I got riled up. So here we are. That is the market for them. Let me know what your thoughts are. Appreciate you watching as always. Till next time.